The night was colder than it had been in weeks, the kind of cold that settles deep into concrete and metal, that doesn't just touch the skin, but slowly drains strength from anything exposed to it for too long. Snow had fallen earlier in the evening, and although the streets were mostly quiet now, the city still breathed in distant hums and flickering lights. It was during a routine patrol that the call came in. A resident had reported faint sounds near an abandoned storage area on the edge of a parking lot. At first, they thought it was the wind pushing through broken panels. Then they realized the sound was changing, repeating, weak, crying. When the rescuers arrived, they didn't rush forward. They stopped several meters away and listened. The sound was barely audible now, thin and uneven, as if it took effort to exist at all. A flashlight beam cut slowly across the snow-covered ground, revealing nothing but tire tracks, frozen debris, and a narrow opening beneath a collapsed wooden pallet. That was when they saw her. The cat lay partially hidden beneath the shelter, her body curled tightly around something smaller. Her fur was damp and clumped with ice. One ear twitched when the light touched her face, but she didn't move. She didn't run. She didn't hiss. She was too tired. Her breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible. One of her eyes was swollen shut, crusted with infection. The other watched silently, unblinking, tracking every movement. Fear was there, but beneath it was something heavier, a kind of resignation that comes when running is no longer an option. And then the rescuers heard it again. Tiny, desperate cries coming from beneath her body. Kittens. They were pressed against her stomach, buried in what little warmth her exhausted body could still provide. Their movements were frantic, their voices thin and strained from the cold. They were alive, but barely. The rescuers exchanged a look and said nothing. They knew better than to move fast. The instinct in moments like this is to reach out, to grab, to save immediately. But instinct is not always kind. A frightened mother can panic. A sudden movement can scatter kittens into the cold. A single wrong decision can turn survival into loss. So they stayed still. They lowered themselves slowly to the ground, keeping their bodies small, their movements predictable. One rescuer spoke quietly, not to the cat, but to the space itself. A calm voice, low and steady, carried through the frozen air. There was no command in it, no urgency, just presence. The mother cat didn't move. Minutes passed. Snowflakes began to fall again, soft and light, settling on coats and gloves. One of the kittens wriggled free for a moment, its tiny body exposed to the air, and let out a sharp cry before burrowing back under its mother's chest. The rescuers did not reach. They waited. Slowly, the cat shifted her weight. It was barely noticeable, but it was enough to reveal more of the kittens beneath her. 3 of them. Their fur was thin, still carrying the softness of new life. Their eyes were barely open. They pressed closer together, instinctively seeking warmth where there was almost none left. The mother cat's body trembled, not from fear this time, but from cold. One rescuer gently slid a blanket across the ground inch by inch, stopping often to let the cat adjust. The fabric moved like something alive, and the cat's ears flattened briefly. But she didn't strike. She didn't run. She watched. Trust does not arrive all at once. It arrives in fragments. The blanket reached the edge of the shelter. The rescuer stopped. Another minute passed. Then another. The cat lowered her head, resting it against the ground, her strength fading with each breath. It was not surrender, it was exhaustion. Carefully, impossibly slowly, the blanket was moved again, just enough to touch the cat's paw. She flinched. The kittens cried. The rescuers froze. Nothing happened. The cat did not move away. She did not bare her teeth. She simply looked up, her single clear eye meeting the rescuer's gaze. There was no trust yet, but there was understanding, a silent negotiation between survival and fear. Another minute passed. Then the cat shifted, allowing the blanket to slide under her chest, lifting her kitten slightly off the frozen ground. The cries softened. The tiny bodies pressed into the fabric, absorbing warmth that hadn't existed moments before. The rescuers exhaled. The next phase took time. Long, careful minutes where nothing seemed to change at all. The blanket was folded gently around the cat and her kittens, creating a cocoon that trapped heat without restraining movement. Hands stayed visible. Movements stayed slow. Voices stayed quiet. Only when the mother cat's breathing became more regular did they move. The transfer to the carrier was done in silence. No sudden lifts, no force, just a gradual enclosure, guiding rather than grabbing. The cat did not resist. She simply gathered her kittens closer and allowed herself to be carried. Inside the vehicle, the heater was already running. Warm air filled the space, fogging the windows almost instantly. The kittens' cries grew stronger as circulation returned to their tiny bodies. The mother cat lifted her head for the first time and adjusted her position, making room for them to nurse. She was still sick, still weak, but she was alive. At the clinic, the lights were soft and low. The team moved quietly, as if the calm itself was part of the treatment. The mother cat was examined first. The infection in her eye was advanced, but treatable. Her body temperature was dangerously low, her energy nearly gone. But she had done what mattered most. She had stayed. The kittens were weighed, warmed, checked one by one. Their tiny hearts beat fast but strong. Each one responded to warmth with movement, their bodies curling instinctively toward life. Throughout it all, the mother cat watched. She did not fight the hands that examined her kittens. She did not growl or pull away. She followed every movement with her eyes, alert but calm, as if she understood that this was no longer a threat. When they were placed back beside her, wrapped together in warmth, she pressed her face against them and closed her eyes. For the first time that night, she slept. Days passed. The mother cat's strength returned slowly. Antibiotics eased the infection. Food brought energy back into her thin frame. The kittens grew louder, stronger, more demanding with each feeding. Their cries no longer sounded like desperation. They sounded like life. The rescuers visited often. They spoke softly, never rushing, always letting the cat set the pace. She watched them now without fear. Sometimes she even leaned into a hand, just slightly, for warmth or reassurance. She had learned something important, that not all hands are dangerous. Weeks later, when the kittens opened their eyes fully and began to explore the world beyond their mother's fur, the story of that frozen night felt distant. But it was not forgotten, because survival is not just about rescue. It is about the choices made in moments of crisis, about restraint instead of force, about patience instead of panic, about understanding that fear does not disappear when help arrives. It fades only when trust is allowed to grow. That night, in the cold and the silence, a mother cat and her kittens were saved not by speed, but by calm, not by strength, but by compassion. And sometimes that is what humanity looks like at its best.